tell me what got on that dirt. Yeah.
Yo, if I were podcasting, it would be insane. Knowledge flowing like the sweetest rain. Professor Bear on the mic, spreading wisdom wide. A bear's thoughts, that's my pride, can't hide.
With the voices in your ear, changing the game.
If I rule podcasting, every thought we'd ignite. In a world of chatter, we'll just walk in the fight. With Professor Bear, we're climbing to new heights. A Bear's Thoughts podcast, shining bright in the night. Topics from the heart, never sounding the same. Got laughs and debates, never dull or bland. From culture to tech, take you by the hand. Join the ride with us, feel the vibe expand. With every episode, we shine that beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul.
So tune in, don't miss what we got to share. If I rule podcasting, I spread the love everywhere.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me this morning. I am Professor Bear, and this is a Bear's Thoughts. And guys, girls, again, 2026 has started off fantastic for Professor Bear. I have gotten to talk to so many great podcast hosts and family members. It's been just more than I had really anticipated with this appreciation month, but I'm so glad. And this morning we have a gentleman that does the Ruthless Talk Podcast. Unfortunately, his partner is doing his shoot job, which a lot of us have. But I want to welcome James to A Bear's Thought. James, how you doing, sir?
I appreciate the invite, man. I want to shout you out, man. That introduction was great. I enjoyed every single second of that. That was really, really awesome, man. But I appreciate the invite, man, and I'm looking forward to this, man. I appreciate the invitation.
No problem. And with the intro, I have gotten so many great comments on it that I've been debating whether I'm just going to leave it for now on as intro. It has blown up, and I hadn't really anticipated that.
Yeah, no, that was great, man. Salute to you, man. That was really good. really good.
I really appreciate it. So let's start with the question I ask all my guests. How did you become a wrestling fan?
Well, so for me, right, so I am a wrestling fan that grew up in the Ruthless Aggression era. So I'm a youngin', right? So it really started when I was about around, I want to say 7, 8 years old, maybe around closer to 7 years old. And I was in a summer camp to where I grew up in Long Island, New York. And I had a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, who had these action figures. And there were professional wrestlers. That's what he told me. I went up to him. I remember going up to him. I was like, "Hey, are those like superheroes? Like what are those people? Like he said they're wrestlers." I was like, "They're wrestlers?" Like, yeah. And then he introduced me all of his wrestlers. He had The Undertaker. He had Kane, John Cena, Batista. Like, he introduced me all these characters, and he talked about a show. He's like, hey, there's a show on tonight, Friday Night SmackDown. You should go and check it out. And I said, okay, I'll check it out. Now, this was around the time to where, John Cena was starting his mega push as the top star. You had people like Edge and such, right? Randy Orton and such, when he was the legend killer. Obviously, The Undertaker when he was around in the prime of his career. And I remember the first character that I really came across was The Undertaker. And really that kind of started as far as how I really truly was in awe of those types of supernatural characters, and how a guy like The Undertaker just came off the screen, and all of his mind games that he played in that feud with Randy Orton. That was the very first feud that I came across as a wrestling fan, man. And I've just been a fan ever since. And I was introduced to Monday Night Raw, watching John Cena and Edge when John Cena tossed Edge into the Long Island Sound several years ago, over decades ago. And yeah, I've just been a fan ever since, man. I've from the Ruthless Aggression era till now, I've just been a fan, man. And that's kind of how it started.
That is cool. So, I am from Knoxville, Tennessee, and what Knoxville is famous for right now is Kane is the mayor of our county.
Yes. Yes.
My daughter, she was working at a laundry service at the time, and she texted me, and it was kind of a frantic text. So I'm like, of course, being a dad, like, what's going on? Who I had to go kill or whatever. Then she sent a picture. How about it was her and Kane taking a picture?
Oh, wow. I love that. That's awesome.
It was such an amazing thing. And she made sure she's like, Dad, I made sure to tell him that you the biggest wrestling fan ever, and this about you. I was like, well, I appreciate that, baby.
I love that. I love that. Shout out to Kane. Shout out to the mayor.
So, from being a wrestling fan, how did you translate over to being a podcaster?
That's a very good question. For most of my life, I've always been a very, I guess you can say I don't want to say antisocial, but very like to myself and very conservative in a way, right? And as I've gotten older, I played sports. That's how I've interacted and I've had a social life. I was fortunate enough to play collegiate sports and all of that stuff. And, now I coach the sport. I coach baseball now, which is great, which is a blessing for me outside of, doing podcasts. But there's always something that, at least for me, I've always wanted to do stuff that, was out of my comfort zone, challenging myself to do things that were out of my comfort zone. And, public speaking was one of them. I was a horrible public speaker. I could not stand it. I was one of those people to where, as a kid, to where like, oh, there's a project due, to where like it's one of those projects to where you have to stand in front of the class and present it in front of the class. I could not stand it. I would make excuses just to not present the project. That's how bad it was growing up as a kid. That's how, just like to myself, how shy and quiet I was. And growing up, as far as the other thing that I do, of which is coaching, it's like, all right, I have to, in order to coach, in order to help other people, I have to be social. I have to, showcase a personality and things like that. And podcasting and content creating has really helped with that. And it's made me realize things that I never thought I could possibly do, which is be creative, come up with ways to publish out, thumbnails, YouTube thumbnails, and publish out certain topic points and things like that. And I'm very, very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for it. As far as just showcasing my passion, the passion that I do have for professional wrestling and for WWE as a whole, and of course for other promotions as well outside of WWE. And that's kind of just how it came about, man. As far as my co-host Brian, shout out to my co-host Brian. We actually we never even met until the podcast even became a thing. So we actually were living in the same living development at the time. This was just like actually not even 5, maybe 3 some odd years ago, 4 some odd years ago, to where when I started up the podcast and everything, I was looking for a co-host. It's like, hey, I want to, work with a co-host. And Brian was one of the first people that reached out. And kind of the dynamic is that, Brian is somebody, who came or watched professional wrestling from, the Attitude Era, from the 80s, right? And I'm somebody that came from the Ruthless Aggression Era, the early 2000s. So, you're getting two people that came from two different eras of professional wrestling, which I think is kind of very unique in a way. So it brings that uniqueness to the platform. And, I couldn't have asked for a better co-host than him. He's done an amazing job. I love working with him. And that's just how it's come about, man. It's been now 3 years since the Ruthless Talk podcast has become a thing. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity and just to be a voice in the community and a voice that everybody can be proud of, as far as that is concerned. Some people may not like it. I mean, if you see my content, then you probably know why. But it's straight up passion. It's straight up passion for the love of wrestling and wanting to see professional wrestling, be great and to be captivating like it once was in the early 2000s and in the late 90s. So that's just how it really came about.
That is so interesting that y'all lived so close together and had never met.
I know, exactly. So like I said, I'm from Long Island, New York. I lived there for about 15 years. And then now I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I moved into that living development. I think it was around 2020, like right around COVID time. And then, 3 years passed. This was around 2022 to 2023. And that's when I had the passion to say, you know what, like I want to, and of course I had a lot of inspiration from a lot of content creators from the past, as far as, showcasing, wrestling, just their wrestling, fandom and things like that, whatever terminology it is. But, and then that's when I made the post about it, said, hey, like I'm interested, or I'm making this podcast. It's professional wrestling. That's going to be the focal point of it. And I remember meeting him for the first time. I'm like, oh, well, snap. I'm like, I didn't realize we lived in the same development. And that's literally how we met. So we met pretty much in the development of this podcast. So it's a pretty cool story to tell. So
not only finding that y'all lived that close and didn't know each other, but it's similar to what my background is. The co-CEO, the starter of WSN, he had put out that he was looking for co-host, and I saw it, wasn't going to answer it, said something to my wife. She made a comment that I would debate Jesus and that I need to go and fill it out. And like you, 3 years later, here I am. And it's so amazing that wrestling has that power to bring total strangers together and almost make you family.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
So with, I would say over thousands of different podcasters out there, what makes you all's podcast different from theirs?
So I would say, as far as what stands out from Ruthless Talk to other people, is that we don't really sugarcoat. When something is not good about the product, we will talk about what's not good about the product. When something is good, then we'll be honest as far as saying, hey, this accomplished a lot. This had a story arc. This made this wrestler look good. This made that person look good, and things of that nature. For me, right, I'm somebody to use valid criticism and objective criticism, right? It's like that saying to where, it's like opinions are like, and I curse on this platform, by the way, opinions are like assholes. We all got one and they're usually full of shit, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at the end of the day. But I'm somebody that wants to, and I know Brian feels the same way, is that we want to build our reputation for somebody that is coming through the lens of from an objective standpoint. And for me, I like to talk a lot about numbers, metrics, and ratings. Again, some people may not like it, and that's totally fine. And I want to spread that message to say, hey, you know, we can like something, we can personally like something and say, oh, this was cool, that was cool. But as far as having an honest discussion and conversation, as far as the reality that WWE is in, as far as how they conduct business, this, that, and the other, then, you know, we need to have that honest conversation to say, hey, well, we may personally like it, but that doesn't mean that the overall production in the business is accomplishing for what's being produced as far as television ratings and such. And, you know, as far as Monday Night Raw and their numbers on Netflix, SmackDown and their numbers on the USA Network, you know, we talk about those things. It's a, you know, it's a different conversation to have because, you know, people want to make excuses about, you know, ratings and such. But at the end of the day, I like to say this, man, is that if the show is that captivating, the numbers and the ratings will prove how good it is. And it's because of the fact of why the Attitude Era was so damn good, because the numbers backed it up. And people, you know, can make the argument and say, oh, well, times are changing. There's streaming platforms, you know, this and that and the other. People make excuses about holidays and things like that. But once again, man, I always say, like, if people are that interested in the product, they will find a way to tune into live. And on a daily, weekly basis, man, I bring up numbers and say, hey, man, this is what happens, right? If numbers are good, this is what happens when you deliver a good product. When the numbers are bad, that's why I speak so poorly about this or about that show or whatever the case is, because look at the numbers the following week. And that's the honest conversation that we need to have, to where we'll talk about what we personally like or what we didn't like. But at the end of the day, we want to be honest, because that's what the wrestlers deserve. They deserve our full honesty. They deserve our honesty and true objective criticism that's going to allow to make everything in the professional wrestling world better, to where there's good competition. Everybody is performing at the best of their ability, because it's the fans that are being honest about what is being put out on television. So that's something that really me and Brian really tried to emphasize a lot. And also everything that's just also not just about the television shows, but everything that is being bestowed outside of the wrestling shows. You know, Brian, you know, he's made many comments about that as well, about, you know, a lot of things that WWE does that are very, very shady, from Vince McMahon to even Triple H now. And that's just something that just needs to be talked about. And I feel like it's not being talked about enough. But what I will say is that in 2025, you know, for a lot of people that have made those excuses about, like, oh, well, there's holidays and this and that. But now, because in 2025, because of this merge with TKO, now people are finally starting to see, like, the actual reality of what's going on with WWE and how things need to change as far as the product and how WWE goes about business. And if we're not honest about it, then nothing is going to change, because we have the power. And I want to use my voice, and Brian wants to use his voice to be a voice in the IWC and the wrestling community that everybody can be proud of, to where, man, I can't stand what he has to say. I can't stand how negative he is, but hey, man, he's telling it like it is, and he's right. You know, now when I say that, do I have all the answers? Do I know everything? No, of course not. But that's why I do my research, and that's why I am fully honest about having a certain bar, right? You know, we can like something and say, hey, this was good, but, you know, there's a bar, man. You know, there's just a certain ceiling that me and Brian have as far as just good television. And, you know, we'll talk about facts and numbers to back it up. And that's just what it is. So
I have to tell you, you are different from a lot of different from podcasters that I watch and myself too. I do bring up numbers and everything, but I think a lot of times I'm like, the numbers are only a small part of it, which it sounds like y'all are the opposite, is like, hey, the product could be good, but if the numbers don't translate,
sure,
that says something, and it's bigger issue.
Sure.
With that being said, what do you think about TKO and their ownership of WWE so far?
Well, I was on a podcast. Triple Threat Wrestling is the name of their podcast. Shout out to them. And we kind of just did a recap of like the entire year with this TKO WWE umbrella. And I was honest with them. I said it's been if I were to give it a grade, it's been a big fat F. Because of the fact that, yes, I understand that, you know, the ticket prices are ridiculously expensive and they're pretty much just pricing out the middle class. You know, people like Mark Shapiro has even stated like, hey, Vince McMahon, like he wasn't, you know, when he was running things, like he wasn't taking the full opportunity to make a financial benefit, as far as like, hey man, like imagine the amount of money you could be making if you were to maybe ramp up the prices a little bit. But that's something that Vince McMahon has a really all over the place, a roller coaster of a reputation, not just for how he's produced in the business, but obviously outside of the wrestling business. But the one thing that I always praise about Vince McMahon, and I understand the 2010s, I've seen it all, to where it was bad. It was just bad television. But I do feel that Vince McMahon was just checked out. He had like 1 foot out the door at that point, and he was ready. He was ready to bounce during those times, and his heart and he was just checked out. He was just simply checked out, and the product was a full example of how bad it was. But the one thing that Vince McMahon truly did that I think a lot of people don't give him credit for is how he stuck to the foundations of professional wrestling, and how characters were believable and how they were larger than life. And he booked people the right way. And that includes Triple H, who is now running the company. So you would think Triple H, a guy who has been, you know, working under Vince McMahon, and how he booked him as such, as a diabolical heel and as a top guy, you would think that Triple H would get that sort of experience working with Vince McMahon and translate that to now him running the show and him being behind Gorilla. And it's completely the opposite. And yes, part of it is because of the fact that WWE has made a substantial amount of money because of this whole TKO partnership. And, you know, Brian, I want to shout him out too, is that I think mainly, honestly, because of the reason why WWE and the product is just very subpar, and that's honestly being very generous when I say that, is that back in the day, like, you know, during the Attitude Era, their backs were up against the wall going up against WCW, and they had no choice but to work day in and day out to put on the best product imaginable. But now, because of the fact of what Vince McMahon has created, now WWE is in a really good spot to where, like, hey, like we don't have to work day in and day out. We don't have to put 100% effort into these shows because we're WWE. We're the 50 plus year old conglomerate company, $1 billion conglomerate company that no matter what, people, I guess, are still going to tune in and watch. But once again, like I talked with numbers, those are going down at a substantial rate. But yeah, the TKO merge and the pricing, how WWE, the business side of things, is just like, it's flat out ridiculous, man. I mean, if you look at prices just for a SmackDown and a Raw, even for WrestleMania, just for like one ticket, it's absolutely ridiculous, man. And however, man, when it comes to the TKO umbrella, you know, people will want to just put the blame on that. It's like WWE is failing because of the fact it's TKO. Well, yes, TKO has a massive hand of why the product has been substantially bad as far as bringing in, you know, fans, because people can't afford to go to these shows. But at the end of the day, it's Triple H in that writer's room, right? It's people like a Bruce Pritchard, like a Michael P.S. Hayes, right? All of those guys, but mainly Triple H, because he's the dude making the final call and making the final approval like Vince McMahon always did. it's still up to Triple H to put on the best product imaginable. And even though we will hold TKO accountable, as they should, for their ridiculous amount of prices and pricing the middle class out and everything, it's shady. It's very, very shady. And that's something that Vince McMahon, right? Say what you want about him, but he always will find a way to bring fans back, right? To bring fans back. He nevered, even with the amount of money that he was making, even during the 2010s and 2000s, he would never price out his fan base. Never. And I feel like even to this day, he would never do that. But that's where we're at now, to where not only are people can't afford to go to these shows, but even with the prices that they are giving to their audience and the amount of platforms that you are asking your fan base to purchase for $10, $15 a month, right? For Netflix, for ESPN, right? Then you got to also purchase for cable, for USA Network, right? For like several different platforms. And you give us a subpar product that has no effort, that doesn't make any sense, and that's just formatted and formulaic as shit. And people are seeing through it. And part of that, yes, is TKO. But I still believe, man, even though we want to point the finger at TKO as we should, but at the end of the day, they're not booking the shows. It's not The Rock. It's not Shapiro. It's not Ariel Manuel. It's Triple H. And that's right now what my sole focus is on, is pointing the finger where it should be, and that's towards Triple H.
With that being said, I've heard so many people have that take on Triple H. And I always kind of counter with this. He is the head writer. He has the final say-so on creative, but he doesn't have the final say-so of the company. And I feel like that's a big difference from Vince McMahon to him. Vince, no matter, he didn't care what you said. It did not matter. You could have had the greatest idea, most creative idea. But when Vince said, scrap that crap, we going back in and figure this out, that's what happened. Triple H doesn't have that luxury. Now, again, I do agree with you that a lot of it falls on Triple H creatively, but I think like one thing that got exposed to me is when The Rock came back and he was going to take Cody's spot and everything. Triple H was overruled by The Rock and I can't even think his name right now, Khan, because their idea was to go a certain way. Once they tried that and it got so tangled up, they left it to Triple H to try to figure it out, to get back on the path. And luckily enough, with Triple H, and as much as I say The Rock he played his part in it, he also saw what was, and I hate using this term, but best for business. It turned out to be a huge moment. I feel like Triple H is a traditionalist. He knows his history. He does a lot of old school booking in a way. He doesn't do just for right then and there. He tries to play the long game. And I think a lot of people don't understand it, that the long game is not the same, because you have a lot of different variances. Wrestlers getting hurt. You see that you're going down that storyline that is went off the rail, so you have to change. There's a lot of different factors. I truly believe that, and like you said about Vince, whether you like him, don't like him, or whatever, I never thought in 2026 that I would be saying, well, damn it, Yeah, if Vince was here, this crap wouldn't be going on. But in the same token, I realize because we all have that fondness for whatever era we grew up in. And we think a lot of times that, oh man, that was the era and they didn't make any mistakes, or, oh, if they did, they corrected it immediately or whatever. I think like the company has gone down it's not wrestling anymore. And it hadn't been wrestling for a long time. It's sports entertainment. And sports entertainment does not gel with wrestling fans as much as it once did.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say that is, if you look at what Tony Khan is doing in AEW, and rightfully so that people give him shit because a lot of times he deserves it, but he has a balance of Vince McMahon and Triple H, where, okay, I will give you this. We may run this, but we see it going off the rails. We're going to try to make it course correct. I will give a little bit, let you have your opinions and do things. But when I see it going off the rails, I'm the boss. This is what we're going to do. And I think a lot of people do not understand that with Tony Khan, and don't understand the position Triple H is really in. TKO is about money. It's a business. They give less than a fuck about us, the true wrestling fans, because they know this tidbit about us. We're going to turn in. We're going to watch. It could be the shittiest one-sided show. We're going to watch for these two reasons. One, we're hoping it's better.
Yep.
Two, so we can just rip you the fuck apart about how bad that you are treating our baby, because all of us feel like wrestling is our baby. And TKO has that negative, we'll throw you away. We don't care. We're getting every single dime out of this. We're going to drain you dry until we're like, okay, we can't get no more, sell it.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they're going to do, probably, because they've burned so many bridges now with people like Fox, and eventually with the USA Network and all these other corporations, that to where, and the reason why I bring up ratings is that the fact that, like, you see like the amount of people like Fox, to where, like, bro, like, look at your numbers, like you're not giving us a bang for our buck, like you're not helping us on our end, like we paid you all this money and you're not giving us anything in return. So, and that shows you, as far as, like, you know, people, again, they're just not interested to watch anything live, anything. You know, the USA Network at least took a gamble to say, listen, we're not going to do business with Monday Night Raw because of just how low they have gotten. But SmackDown, right, comparing the two at the time, SmackDown had at least a couple of hundred some odd thousand viewers more. And now you see how they're doing business now with SmackDown. And I want to give this little factual statement, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So there were numbers that were just published out from this past SmackDown, and say what you want, you know, the fact that it was in Berlin, Germany, and that it was taped and all of this stuff, but they had a number. Their overall average number was 990K. That is, they've been under 1 million for the first time since SmackDown has started. In what, they've started back in 1999. It's been well over about 25 years, and they've been under 1 million for the first time. Like, that's not on accident. Like, this is a trend that's been going on way before even TKO, the merge, was even a thing. And that's why I don't really put most of the blame on TKO, to where, yes, TKO has taken a product to where it was really bad to just now god awful. So that's kind of just where the bar is, as far as that is concerned, right? And people will make the excuses to say, oh, well, a college football game was on, freaking the NFL and NBA, and then there's holidays and stuff. But it's not about a week. It's not about a week. It's about how this trend has been going on for months and for years. It's not about just 1 week to say, oh, the numbers were bad this week and they'll pick it up next week. Okay, I'm sure maybe next week's SmackDown, they might, to where their average is right now, what, a 1.1 on the USA Network? They might go back to 1.1, if not a 1.2. But then guess what? It's not going to be sustainable because we've seen this trend. And we know how lazy this company is when producing a television product in this company, to where there's three things that I always talk about that Triple H likes to rely on. Ready? Cheap pops, title changes, and nonsensical brawls. If you really think about it, the shows as a whole, that's pretty much what it is. So where, think about it, they teased a Chris Jericho return this past Monday. That's what they did, right? People say like, oh, it's like it was a rumor, like whatever. No, it was WWE teased it.
Yes,
right? They legit teased it. And not only that, bro, the numbers have gotten so bad to where Netflix is doing everything that they can to give them the rub by putting Stranger Things on everything. That's what they did. Like that just shows you Netflix, like, all right, we're going to give you this rub, right? Stranger Things, maybe there's fans of who watch Stranger Things are going to watch this show. Let's see if you can sustain that. Guess what? It's not going to, because we've seen that progress. We've seen this downward spiral for weeks, months, years. Because at some point, man, like, we can say that, oh, look at the live crowd, and look at when Jey Uso comes out and yeets and people are yeeting and going crazy. Okay, great. That's the live audience. That's called appeasing the live audience, which is important. But then when you look at the people watching from home, that's where it doesn't translate. That is where the disconnect is. Because like I said back in the day, to where, yes, if you looked at a crowd in the late 90s, man, that you could see how electric it was. People had signs. When bringing signs to a wrestling show was really cool. And it translated to people watching from home because there was no fear in missing out. There was no fear in missing out. Nowadays, it's like, oh, okay, I'll just watch the highlights the following day, or maybe I'll watch it later on YouTube or whatever, right? No, it's like, even if you miss the first hour of the show, let's say on a Monday Night Raw, you still needed to tune in to say, all right, I still need to tune in to see what happens. I just got home from work, right? From whatever 9 to 5 that people would work, nowadays, right? I still need to check out Monday Night Raw to see what happens. I can't miss anything else in the show because it's that damn good, right? And as far as like, oh, even like pre-tape shows, people will make the argument and say, oh, James, it was a pre-tape show, that's why the number was so low. Well, let's go back to when Mick Foley won the WWF championship, right? That was on a pre-tape show way back in the day, right? And I think it was I forgot who said it when Monday Nitro, WCW Nitro said
Tony Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone was like, he says like, oh, right now over in Monday Night Raw, Mick Foley just won the WWF championship. That's going to put asses in seats. And people flocked over to the show just to see Mick Foley win the championship. Because of everything, not just because of who Mick Foley is as a talent. I love Mick Foley. Mick Foley is probably one of the most underappreciated talents in this freaking industry of all time. Love Mick Foley. But how everything was built up to that point. People wanted to see Mick Foley because of how Mick Foley was booked going into it, right? And everything that happened during that period of time. And they tried to do that same magic with Drew McIntyre winning the WWE Championship. And you see the number 990K. That's not a fake number, guys. That's not fake news. That's a legit fact. But that's That's the thing. People are seeing through the BS. It's like people are catching on to how this company is producing television. And you mentioned, TKO and Triple H, right? And how, it's out of Triple H's hands. I respectfully disagree, because when you look at The Rock, right? People will like put blame on The Rock because The Rock, like, oh, it's like freaking The Rock and the John Cena, heel turn, right? I'll mention that.
Right.
Like The Rock, first of all, The Rock was never even supposed to be at Elimination Chamber. The reason why The Rock was even at Elimination Chamber is because Nick Khan went up to him and said, hey, man, like, we're not selling tickets. Think about that. We're not selling tickets. Nobody gives a shit about this, about Elimination Chamber. We need a headline. We need some buzz. He was asked to be a part of that show. And The Rock's like, all right, I'll do it. So they build this little short-term little thing about him taking Cody Rhodes' soul. And the whole idea was for Cody Rhodes to turn heel. That's what The Rock wanted to do. The Rock wanted Cody Rhodes to turn heel. And they decided, WWE and Triple H's decision was, hey, maybe we'll turn John Cena heel, because leading up to WrestleMania, Cody Rhodes has had no heels to fight against. He's had none other than just redundant matches with people like the Judgment Day and members of the Bloodline and this and that and the other, right? Because nobody else was booked properly. So Their last-ditch effort was like, all right, it's John Cena's heel turn. We don't know what the hell we're doing. Oh, but let's turn John Cena heel. That will create a little bit of buzz. And they did the turn, and the turn was really good for the moments, right? For the moment, it was very good, no question. Right. And it left suspense to say, wow, like what's going to happen now with The Rock? And The Rock was never a part of it, obviously, and we all know how that turned out. And it was because of the fact that The Rock gave WWE months in advance, right? Months in advance that he was not going to be a part of WrestleMania. He told them that. He's like, listen, man, do what you want to do with this, but I am not going to be reliable for you guys because he obviously, of course, he has other stuff with Hollywood and stuff. And I'm also not giving The Rock a pass either. Obviously, no matter what circumstances you have, whether it's Hollywood or whatever, like you had to be at WrestleMania. Like that's no question. But at the same time though, man, like Triple H was given months in advance to call an audible. And you know what that audible was at WrestleMania? Travis Scott. That was your audible. So again, man, I ask, like, how creative is Triple H when this dude was given months in advance to where, like, all right, The Rock's not going to be a part of this. We just turned John Cena heel. How are we going to go about this? And you saw exactly how it translated. And even the face turn, when John Cena turned back face, it was so anticlimactic. In one promo, he just turns back face and everything else is kumbaya. They had nothing. And that's not TKO. That is Triple H being inept. And that's what needs to be called out.
I cannot argue with you on any of your points. I will say that Triple H has a lot to do with their ratings blunders also. But I think it's a lot deeper than we really think about. And let me bring this point up to you.
Mm-hmm.
When they got WCW and ECW, they shut down.
Mm-hmm.
WWE was the only big time wrestling promotion there. They had no competition, to the point that they had to fake competition within themselves with SmackDown brand and Raw brand. The numbers have been falling ever since. I always say that the reason why WWE to this point is doing what they're doing is because they got rid of their competition and people got so burn out on the half-assing. You like I hate monopolies in anything. Monopoly is not good. You have to have competition to continuously
I agree.
to go forth. You get your
100%.
best ideas. You don't become lazy. And I think WWE became lazy and people took more credit for things that they really didn't do. And I am not a Vince Russo fan. I make no bones about it. I recognize that he had a style that appealed to a lot of people. And you can see that today with him in Juggalo Championship Wrestling, with his writing and what they're doing. They're making a good buzz. People are talking about it. But no matter what, if you do not have competition, legitimate competition, not fake competition, legitimate competition, the business suffers, the sport suffers, and people get tired. How do you expect to generate new fans when your old fans are running out the door? Not walking, running the fuck out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, 100%. Like, I mean, I always say that about like you hit it the nail on the head. Like it's about competition. And that's why, as far as what AEW is doing, you mentioned AEW earlier, we want every single company to bring the best out of one another. And you hit the nail on the head. You said the word, monopoly, monopolizing. That's exactly what WWE is doing. They've done it, they're doing it right now with TNA, right? TNA is going to be sold at some freaking point, and WWE is going to be like that's clear as day, right?
Yeah.
What they've done, with freaking with AAA, right? What WWE is doing with AAA right now. And the only saving grace that you have of competition right now is AEW. So the thing is, the criticism with AEW, right? Let me get into them to where, like, listen, AEW, are they perfect? No. But you know what they do, man? At least from what I'm watching, man, the shows are more watchable. And the fact that the shows flow better and there's storylines that just make more sense. And there's amplification, right? There's amplification of like backstage segments and how certain wrestlers are being portrayed, right? It's just, there's a pulse to the show. With WWE and Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, there's no pulse, because of the fact, and Stone Cold said it himself, the shows are so formatted. Every single show is the same format. So where you have, what do you have? Wrestlers that come into the arena, right? So we're like, hey, we're gonna film this shot of you coming into the arena, right? Make sure you smile, right, and have your coffee and your luggage, right? And people and that right there, man, that start of the show is so important because you are giving your audience every single reason to say, like, I'm turning this off. This is already dull. At the very start of the show, back in the day, there was pyro. There was freaking electricity, right? The rock and roll theme music, right? Everybody was going nuts and crazy, right? You got Jim Ross screaming, "Welcome everybody!" Like he's screaming at the top of his lungs. Nowadays, it's Joe Tessitore saying, "Welcome everyone to Monday Night Raw. We got a great show for you today. Oh, here comes Liv Morgan and the Judgment Day." As they're ready to say, like, come on, dude. Like, come on. Like, it's so just like, it puts you legit into a coma. Forget NyQuil. You don't even need NyQuil. Just listen to Joe Tessitore talk for 2 minutes and you'll be out like a light. And same with SmackDown. SmackDown is the same thing, man. Everyone's going to show up to the arena. It's like, and again, we talk about TKO, and this is where I will put emphasis and the blame on TKO as well, because what they, for some odd reason, want to do, right, is that they want to make WWE legit in the same conversation as as sports, right? In the same sports realm, being on ESPN, right? The wrestlers coming to the arena like they're about to compete, right? In a game, right? It's like, oh, it's like, or UFC, right? Because UFC, right? UFC, you know, like they'll have like their fighters come into the arena to build suspense for a big fight. But when you take something, bro, when you take something and you liquidate it, when you ram it into the dirt, it's no longer special anymore. It becomes redundant. And that's what WWE, and again, I'm going to give another shout out to Stone Cold, because once again, he said it best to where of how formatted the shows are. And he was like, dude, like have 5, 6, 7 different formats and rotate them in and out to where things feel fresh, right? Nowadays, man, WWE will take something that they think is working and they'll just ram it into the dirt. It's no longer special anymore, right? I've seen every single brawl that I need to see. I've seen every single cheesy face-to-face promo every single week. I don't need to watch it. But at least with AEW, there's at least there's some variety, right? Some actual amplification, a pulse, right? What does The Rock do with his freaking forearm, right? That's what it is, man. Listen, I'm not saying AEW is perfect. I'm not saying that AEW does everything great on a weekly basis, but what they give you, man, is effort. What Tony Khan is at least giving you is effort, and also listening to their audience. You know, you want to know how I know that? I think it was, what was it? Mina Shirakawa, right? On Dynamite. She's doing her thing now with Tony Storm, this little tag team that they're in. But she had her entrance changed one week, right? And after her match, you know what Tony Khan did? Because he heard the backlash already from people like, what is this theme song? What happened to her? Dude, Tony Khan did not hesitate. He just flipped it right back to her original theme song. I loved it. I love it because, like, again, that's just like, why would you continuously just let that drag out? If people are just like, shoot, his thought process is like, if people are not happy with this, man, let me just go back straight to it. I love that. That is a clear-cut example of you listening to your audience. And here's the thing too, and I'll send this back over to you. I know I'm talking a lot. With AEW, right? Like at the end of the day, man, you know, let's not act like back in the day with WWE before the late 90s. Let's not act like the television product for years and years and years before WWE finally found their footing. Let's not act like the product was horrible, right? AEW being a 5, 6, I think 7-year company now, right? Let them go through their growing pains, man. That's not an excuse. That's just reality of it, right? They're a 6 to 7-year company. Yes, they have a lot of talent. Yes, right? There are a lot of things that they're not doing very well, but let them figure it out. And by 10, 15 some odd years, if they're still having the same issues, we'll call them out just like me and Brian call out WWE, because it's WWE, the spark, right? And the pulse and the energy around the wrestling world. It starts with WWE because they've been around for 50 plus years. It starts with them. And like you said, man, all they want to do, instead of embracing that competition, they're just going to monopolize. They're doing it with WWE ID, right? They're going to go through all of these independent wrestling schools and they're going to learn the WWE way. They're going to talk the same. They're going to wrestle the same. Nobody stands out. There's nothing organic about anything within the WWE bubble. As again, there's a lot of talent in that company. I'm not saying there's not, but if you watch a lot of those wrestlers nowadays compared to what you watched in the late 90s and even in the early 2000s, every single wrestler, and Brian, shout out to him, he said it best. Everybody is interchangeable. They're interchangeable characters. There's nobody larger than life. There's people that we like and we respect and we think that have a lot to offer, but there's nobody that's larger than life because the company is not booking them that way, right? Braun Breaker has so much freaking potential. That segment on Monday Night Raw has been the only semblance of a storyline that I can remember in months. That's an actual story. Will it have a payoff? I don't know. But the stuff with Pierce and Breaker, two characters who are believable, who are amplified, man. And then the segment from, backstage to where Paul Heyman's like, listen, dude, like, last time I checked, you put his hands on him first before he put his hands on you. And then that right there is a cliffhanger of suspense for you to watch the next week. Like, all right, not only is the suspension going to be lifted, but Adam Pearce might be out of a job. And like that right there, man. And it may seem little, but it's little things like that, little cliffhangers that make you want to watch the following week. There's nothing like that today. Nothing. And if there is, it's once in a blue moon, because WWE is fat, happy, and lazy, and they're collecting all their money from ESPN, Netflix. And once that dries out, and you said it best, they're going to sell probably to Saudi Arabia within the next 5 years.
Yep. So, a point that came up while you were talking to me is WWE don't even follow their own damn rules. What happened to SmackDown and Raw being two separate entities and you had to be signed to them? Now they just show up to other shows, don't have no excuses, no reason. They just do it. And then just like, oh, we're glad you signed to SmackDown. It don't matter. You'll have them on Raw with no real explanation, no nothing.
Nope.
And then with AEW, had a discussion about AEW with someone who doesn't necessarily like AEW. And we were talking. He's like, man, he said, you don't understand the storyline unless you watch week to week. I said, well, I argue that fact, because at least AEW will give you backstories. If you're just a first timer watching that show, they will give you some back history to get caught up from where you start watching it. Versus WWE, hell, you don't have to watch it every week, because every week is the same thing.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you didn't see the Judgment Day not defend their tag titles? Well, hell, we're going to do it for another 2 months.
Exactly, man. So, and here's the thing. Sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off, man, but again, another thing, and this is another reason why I put a lot of blame on Triple H. And Triple H should know better, because again, he was booked as a diabolical heel under Vince McMahon for years and years and years. To where when you watch so many matches, it's like we pair, and again, AEW, and again, they did this actually last night, to where like you pair heels against other heels and faces against other faces. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it, because that is putting the wrestlers in the worst position possible, because we look at what a heel's job is supposed to do, right? Their job is to collect heat and hatred from the crowd. That's their job. It's hard to do that when you are in the middle of the ring with another said heel that's trying to do the same thing. Same as a face versus face match. Why in the heck would you put freaking a baby face, right? Why would you put, there was a main event, I think it was a tag team match. You put the Usos in the ring with two of your top singles baby faces in Punk and LA Knight. Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Should be the basics, and not even a wrestling wizard should have to call that out. Like, it's just absolutely stupid for you to. And then you look at the crowd in live in living color. They're like, they sit and twiddle their thumbs, because they're like, what do we do? Like, do we cheer for the Usos? Do we cheer for Punk and LA Knight? Right? Frickin', they had AJ Styles drop his tag team title to the Usos a couple weeks ago. So people have this ovation for the Usos from taking the titles away from AJ Styles, a dude that is supposed to be on a retirement tour or whatever. Again, last thing we need is another retirement tour after what happened to Cena, but I digress. But like, you're cheering for a face team that took away titles from one of your top faces in AJ Styles. So in reality, you're cheering the fact that Styles just lost his championship. Why would you do that to AJ Styles? But nobody wants to bring that part up, man. Nobody wants to talk about how detrimental that part of the booking is. Julia right? Julia, who's your current Women's United States Championship. Do you know what she's been doing for the past several weeks? She's been fighting another heel in Chelsea Green. Why? Why would you do that? What world is this good booking? What world does this make sense? Right? Last time I checked, right, Paul Levesque, I'm not even going to call you by Triple H. You're just Paul Levesque. The fact that you, Vince McMahon, would never put you, right, a top heel in the ring with another top heel. You want to know why? Because he knew how to protect you. He knew how to make you larger than life. But because of the fact that you don't give a shit, right? Because of the fact that you know, right? Fans will tune in anyway, right? What do they know, right? They don't even know what they're watching, right? They're going to tune in anyway and whatever, right? So you're just going to throw people out there just for the sake of it. But what I'm frustrated is that not because of the garbage you're putting on television, but how it's so detrimental to those talents who have so much to offer, and they're being put in the worst positions possible. And the amount of just stupid, confusing, meaningless garbage that is being bestowed every single week. If you don't believe me, go ask Bobby Lashley. Go ask MVP. Right? No, seriously, the like MVP, man. If you want to know how MVP feels about Triple H, go ask him. Right? And he's everything is justifiably so. Right? People freaking like R-Truth. That's even still in this company today. You don't want to know why R-Truth was brought back into this company, right? Because we talk about TKO. Right. Once again, we go back to TKO, right? How, R-Truth was released from his contract and we all heard the backlash, right? R-Truth, why would they do this to R-Truth? This, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. Well, again, people, when we talk about contracts, right? It's like, hey, people were trying to make budget cuts, right? I'll use that loosely, right? And it's like, well, Triple H's hands are tied. He's nothing he can do, right? It's TKO's decision. No, it's not, right? TKO will come up to him and says, hey, man, we need, there's some financial ties that we need to cut. Are there any talents that you don't really see have any value, right? And it's Triple H that makes the decision to say, oh, okay, well, R-Truth, I do nothing but stick him in a Santa outfit every single freaking week or in some sort of costume. Yeah, I'll kick him to the curb, right? People act like it's like TKO will go up to Triple H's door. They'll be like, all right, Hunter. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to cut R-Truth's contract. As far as that, yeah, he's clearly you got nothing for. We're gonna have to just get rid of his contract, right? Everything that you got planned for R-Truth for the next couple of weeks, right? Like it's done. Like we're cutting his contract. That's not how business works. Triple H is making the decision of who to cut, who to release. That's Triple H. It's TKO that says, hey, man, there's some financial budget cuts that we need to make, but it's Triple H was the one that sent R-Truth out the door. Triple H was the one that said R-Truth, outside of your comedic shtick, we got nothing for you, toodles. And guess what they had to do? Guess what Nick Khan had to do? The backlash was so bad, right? It was so big to where Nick Khan had to offer him a contract because Triple H did not want him back. He saw no value in him whatsoever. Nick Khan had to offer him a 4-year extension of a contract, and that is why to where you saw him return at Money in the Bank. And guess what he is still doing now? Guess what he's doing now? He's still doing the comedic bullshit. And is it funny? I guess it's funny, but you know what, bro? I'm over it. Because R-Truth has paid his dues. He's done that for 10 plus years, 15 plus years. You had a storyline sitting in your lap for Ron Killing's R-Truth going against the establishment. You had him cut a fantastic promo, being on top of the announce table, cutting his dreadlocks off, right? All of that shit. And all of that was for nothing because Triple H is a petty motherfucker. Excuse my language. But that said.
So you've made a bunch of different points. Let me go back to the Usos taking on LA Knight and CM Punk. It should have made sense. It should have, because you had Jay, who was winging and teasing being a heel. So the match itself, I was like, okay, it makes it makes sense. Then you just drop it. Hey, what happened to Jay being pissed that he's losing now? And he got insulted by his brother that he was a little Roman Reigns. What happened to that? It got dropped. Okay. You know, I'm not gonna flip out too bad on that. Then we have the R-Truth thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they set him up beautifully to make him have a legitimate headlining run. Let's just drop it. Fuck it. Who cares?
Exactly.
They want the silly R-Truth. That's what they ride for, so we're going to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do y'all not understand that you just can't drop an angle and it makes sense? It hurts your product. It hurts the wrestlers. Again, John Cena. You know what, Cody? You're right. I messed up. Let me be the old John again. Yay. You just cannot drop storylines without explanation.
Mm-hmm.
To me, a prime example of this is AEW with Adam Cole and MJF. People dog the hell out of Tony Khan for letting them finish the feud off. It's like, why now? Who cares? It was so long ago and blah, blah. He at least finished the storyline. Now, why does it matter? It matters because we've been telling you this. Now, we understand both guys got hurt. They went on. We have went on. But just to finalize, when they're able to do it, hey, let's get an end to it.
Mm-hmm.
An ending. This is what you do in storytelling. You have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Mm-hmm. WWE has a bad track record of just dropping shit, don't explain it, then 5-10 years later, hey, you know, when R-Truth went back to being R-Truth, well, what happened was, hell, most people don't even remember the damn storyline or care. And I don't faces versus faces, heel against heel. Unless there is a storyline reason, like you said, it screws them. But if you have a storyline reason, I can get behind it. Point example, they had the 4-way match last night on AEW. Had 2 heel teams, 2 face teams. So they're trading spots.
Sure. Yeah.
You're gonna have a moment where the heels and the heels gonna fight. You had it. They meet. They the crowd does what it does. Meet, and they appreciate that. Then the baby faces got on top. Well, hell, now it's the baby face versus baby face. Okay, go. Boom, boom, boom. But in the end, you had a heel pin a baby face. The formula that works. It told a good story. It gave everybody an ebb and flow. And now, hey, those 2 heels fought, but they were more heelish than this team. And they helped you forget because they let the babyface come in and let those heels that you might have like cheered or okay with, they went immediately back to doing what they did, is being heels. I definitely am okay with that. On rare occasions, you want the face versus face for action. You want to see, because you know those 2 people are going to put on one hell of a match. Sometimes it's the match and not the dynamic of the match. So again, if it makes storyline sense, I'm okay with it. Julia and Chelsea Green. And the problem was you have not made any other woman relevant to be in that spot. You have a handful of women. If one gets hurt, now you stuck with these many women. Now you got to do these things. And it's like, like I had this argument. Love me Chin. B-Fab is getting better in the ring. Both of them had their shot at the U.S. titles. They didn't win. Then why in the hell do I expect them to beat the world heavyweight champion? They have not been credible contenders, and it's not their fault when you don't have enough talent there to have backups and to build them. You have to make people credible. That was probably one of the main issues with Cody's run, where everybody felt flat with it, is because who was he defending against? the heroes were like, him? World champion? Oh, come on, man. I got a better chance of going to ring with Cody than him. And it's not a shot at the person or their credibility. It's the credibility that the company has not made them. They don't feel credible. Look, one of the things I always talk about is WrestleMania. And why is it WrestleMania is always the point where they bring back old talent?
Because it's easy.
It's easy.
It's easy.
And they're established.
Yeah, exactly. From Vince McMahon. From they liquidate everything that Vince McMahon does. So that's what they're doing, man. It's like, with Chris Jericho, right? Teasing a Chris Jericho return, right? Who made Chris Jericho? Who turned Chris Jericho who he was today? It was Vince McMahon, right? With the Y2J gimmick. And they're going to liquidate that, bro, until there's nothing left, until there's not a Roman Reigns, a John Cena, a Brock Lesnar, a Goldberg, right? All of these people, right? They're going to liquidate every part-timer that they have until there's nothing left, until they realize, like, oh, wow, like, we haven't built any other larger than life stars. Is Stone Cold, I know his Stone Cold is like about 80 plus years old. Can he still wrestle? So,
and I agree with you with that. But I will say this too. It's the formula that Vince did. Because if you think about it, how many stars in, I'd say 15, since 2015 have they made who could be legitimate main eventers? Now you can say Cody, but they didn't make Cody. Cody went and made himself. Drew McIntyre did the same thing. When they got released, they hit the indies and was like, we're about to tear this bitch up until WWE come crying to us, we want you back. Mm-hmm. And again, I have no problem with that. That's what you're supposed to do. If you don't have the confidence to bid on yourself, then why are you doing it? Just like a prime example right now, Shotzi Blackheart. She is blazing on the indie scene. Every time you look up, damn, she's here. Oh, damn, I just saw a flyer for her in Maine yesterday, and she's in California the next damn day. Damn. Whoa. She's in California and Tennessee the same day. She's grinding and making it well known because they will come back for her and like, hey, bam, here you go. We see what you did. Now we can capitalize on all the hard work you did and translate it to we did it. So to me, WWE has problems when I was a big advocate of the women having secondary titles because it legitimizes the world title. It gives other women chances to not be in the main event program, but help build them up with a secondary title. It makes your mid-carders feel more interesting having a secondary title. But it does you no good when you still are not taking your roster and dividing them up into making them superstars, giving them a chance. When you can say 3 women have held the U.S. title in a year's time, generally that's not a bad statement. That means, okay, they're doing good things with it. But you've had Chelsea Green, Selena Vega, and you got Julia. One of the 3 is with their husband, ain't giving a straight damn about the women's division. The other 2 are heels. You already got your other 2 people in the women's division trying to keep the world championship going and make it do something because Jade Cargill, as much as she is an awesome specimen, she is not. I don't think she was ready for the world title. They needed a little more. You got Bianca out. You got Piper Niven's out. You got, like I said, you got Charlotte and Alexa Bliss in the tag title division. The tag title division hadn't felt this relevant since they started the titles. But you had to take individual people that could be working. Imagine Julia versus Charlotte Flair for the U.S. title. Does that not sound like money? But hey, you know what? We got too many. Okay, let's start pushing all these damn NXT women up. They have like 18,000 women in NXT, and they just okay. Now we're gonna start slowly pushing them up. Okay, but then you still have a void in building women to do something. On Raw's side of it, Roxanne Perez, she is an awesome individual, but she got drugged into the Judgment Day void.
Yeah.
So now you got Liv, you got Raquel, and Roxanne.
Roxanne, yeah.
Now they just switching them out. Okay, 2 of y'all gonna go for the tag, and the other one's gonna be the world. Go for the world. We don't care what combination. We're gonna do it. So now we got Becky, and I love Becky with the Intercontinental title because I feel like it brings legitimacy to that title. But you got her facing a person that is green as shit.
Oh my God.
And it's nothing towards her. I was even on the side of when they were booing her in the on the matches. I thought, okay, guys, let's take it easy. She's learning. Give her a chance. Y'all don't have to dog her that bad. Then you have Ivy Niles, who sat out for 4 months for no fucking reason. None. It's just, we don't have anything creative for her. Well, start writing. Ain't that your job? You should have something for her. You use your damn brain. But then you immediately bring her back to lose to the new Intercontinental Champion. That's really going to make her seem legitimate. Somebody had this point. After all the filibustering and the crap I've been saying, someone had this I thought was a very insightful point. Out of all the writers WWE have, let's make certain writers for certain divisions, because that will help keep things fresh. They can actually focus on that division instead of, well, we got to all think of what's going on with Punk and the Vision, and no. Make other people care as much as you care for your main event. You got to care for your mid-carders, because hopefully one day they will actually be superstars. Even how many times, and I know I'm going on this rant, and I don't mean to. It's supposed to be about you. But how many damn times did they turn the Giant in WWE? Nobody knows. The Giant don't even know. It's like he'll walk in the building. Hey, your face. Okay. then in the middle of the show, well, now we want you to run out and be a heel. But I just cut that. Okay. Okay, you're the boss. I do what you tell me. He's changed so many times for the weather forecast is going to rain. Well, that means the Big Show got to be a face now. And with all of that filibustering I did, it's the point that you made. Make it make sense. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. When you confuse them, you lose them. That's kind of really what I always say. When you confuse them, you lose them. That's really when it comes to face, heel. When nobody's really standing out, or even these NXT stars like Trick Williams, bro. Like Trick Williams just debuted, and he's supposed to be a heel, but yet you give him this theme song. Nobody's gonna boo Trick Williams, and you put him in there in the same ring with Sami Zayn. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't benefit anybody that's in that ring with Trick Williams, Sami Zayn, right? Same thing with Orton, just from this past Friday, right? Like even all of these NXT stars, when they make this debut, right? Remember when debuts and vignettes, like they were special before a wrestler even stepped foot into the arena. Razor Ramon is a great example. The Wyatt fan. I'm the biggest Bray Wyatt fan probably in the IWC. Probably. I love Bray Wyatt. His vignettes with the Wyatt family every single week, right? The story arc of his character and the Wyatt family, their goal, their mission, what they want to do, right? All of those vignettes that only lasted like 90 seconds. And it made such an impact to when they debuted and how they were booked going forward after that. Like nowadays, it's just like, all right, you're a really good wrestler, and we're going to put you in there with our world champion. We're going to tease a world title opportunity the second that you step foot on WWE. Like Jordynne Grace. I love Jordynne Grace. Like she has one debut match, and then right from the jump, because they know they have nothing else for Jade Cargill to go up against, right? Because she's had 0 title defenses on WWE television since she's won that damn title. 0. She's had none. And again, she's also been in the same vortex of putting her as a heel, and Chelsea Green, who's a heel, in segments together. Like again, it's just throwing talents in a segment for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
None. It's and even these debuts, they're not impactful, right? Nobody's standing out. You know, they'll do the debut on television. This is how ass backwards they are. They'll do the television debut, then they'll do the vignettes, like they're doing with Obafemi. Like, come on. It makes no sense. Nobody, like, again, man, there's Carlito, right? Remember when Carlito, when he debuted, like, he was just going through the streets, just spitting an apple in everybody's face, right? Again, I mentioned Razor Ramon. I mentioned the Wyatt family, right? There were vignettes of people making their presence felt, and you were feeling it before they even stepped foot in the ring. That's something that Vince McMahon knew firsthand, right? Did it pay off for the character in the long run? For most, it did. For some, yeah, it didn't. It stuck out like a sore thumb. It was not very good. But at least they knew how to build the suspense of a superstar to make you care about them. Nowadays, bro, it's just like, all right, we're gonna debut in a match with such and such, and then by 2 weeks, you're gonna probably hold on to a championship. Okay, it's just like, all right, again, man, you know the phrase? It's like the title doesn't make the person makes the title.
Yep.
Like, again, man, like, you can put championships around all these people. You can have a crap ton of championships in your company. If you're not given a reason or a purpose to feel a spark or an interest towards a character, it doesn't matter. You can put a bunch of titles on them. It doesn't matter. Nowadays, before holding on to 2 belts was prestigious, now everybody nowadays just holds on to 2 belts. And we think that, we're going to look at them as larger than life. No, it doesn't work that way. And that's what WWE is losing the plot of too.
Yeah. So we spent this time talking about WWE and AEW and the majors. Do y'all talk about the indie circuit?
For the most part, we'll acknowledge it. As far as, New Japan, we'll acknowledge stuff as far as, obviously with ROH, ROH is doing their thing with AEW as well. For the most part, to an extent, kind of, but also not, because again, like, listen, I'm somebody that am not able to watch other indie promotions as much as I can. So usually for me and Brian, it's usually WWE and AEW. That's kind of like the focal point of our content for the most part. So,
and I look. There are some podcasters like yourself who they acknowledge it. They may speak on it for a second, but don't. They're more into WWE and AEW. I don't have any issue with that, because I think as a fan, you should speak on what you're familiar with and what you know and can watch.
Absolutely.
Myself, I'm a big indie guy. My local indies promotions, I get a chance to go out. I've actually got to talk to a lot of the wrestlers. I've been blessed to talk to the owners. And I have so much fun with that. I always tell people, for me, the difference between the majors and the indies, most indies, their energy is different than the majors, for this fact. You can get closer. You can get close to the wrestlers. You can have conversations. You actually feel like you're part of the show. You can say something like, "You suck," and he hears you, know that you said it, and could come back with a quick, "But you paid for this." Just different things. So I love that we have different takes and have people covering it all. And I have to tell you and admit that just listening to how you view and your partner views wrestling, and being upfront and truthful is such a great angle, because there are times when I even say for myself, I will I go down the topic. Then later on I can kind of backtrack of what I said. And it's not necessarily that I am trying to be on both sides of the fence. Sometimes I say something, then I think about it, just think about what I said, and I'm like, you know what? I think I missed this point. Or I went so left because I'm pissed. I have to come back and like, God, yeah, I know I said it and I meant it, but I was a little wrong because my energy carried me that way. And I love when podcasters are truthful, even like you said. And I'm a firm believer of this. I might piss you off to the point of you like, well, you suck. Well, you got this button that's called off. Use that bitch anytime you feel like it. It would not hurt my feelings. I don't mean to be that rude, but it is what it is. Because just like I talk about WWE, if it got to the point where it just bugged me out, I just won't watch them.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, man, like, when we started, me and Brian were doing Monday Night Raw, SmackDown reviews every week. We don't do that anymore because it's just not worth our time reviewing the shows anymore. So people always tell me, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Yeah, I'm not watching it. I don't watch it live, and then I'll watch what I need to watch maybe a day or two after, and then I'll talk about it. But before, I would watch it live. I would take note. I mean, I still take notes on the shows. And I'd come on here and I'd be brutally honest with people, But again, man, just no matter what I say on this headset and into this microphone, like, I'm going to be a professional wrestling fan. That's not going to change.
Right.
Just because, again, like, I'm going to say what I'm going to need to say. Brian's going to do the same thing, and we're not going to lose sleep over it. I'll sleep like a baby that same night, And that's just what people just don't understand, and they may never get it. It's just is what it is.
And like you, if I don't watch it live, man, I not a lot of times purposely I don't, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be drained. Oh, this is gonna take too long. I'm like, the next day I can zip through the 17 backstage interactions that don't mean a damn thing and see the 3 matches that they're gonna do. Then catch myself sometimes zipping through the matches like, oh Jesus, this is the same match they had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
Like, oh, wait a minute, let me bag up. He did a spot. Let me see that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I have definitely enjoyed this conversation. One of the main reasons why I did this is I'm a firm believer in giving people flowers. And I want people to understand that we as podcasters, we have stories too. And I think it's been so interesting to get it out there and to give you and your partners the flowers y'all deserve, because wrestling, as I like to say, wrestling is not just an individual sport, it's a team sport. And we may play a minute role in it, but our role is so big too that we need to hear we're doing good, and you need to get your flowers while you are alive and smell them and appreciate them. So with that being said, I want to thank you and your partner for everything you're doing for wrestling to help keep it going as strong as it is. And y'all are amazing. And a big thank you.
I appreciate that, man. Seriously, I really, really do. And to close it out, man, me and Brian are very grateful that we have met a lot of great people from this space, for this wrestling community, right? Like I talk to people, on a daily basis that I never knew in high school and college because of professional wrestling and content creating. And that's what's also, the beauty of the people that you meet. And they look at you and they look at your content and say, hey man, like the voice that me and Brian try to be in this community, for them to respect that, to be open-minded at least about that. If they want to disagree with what we say, that's totally fine. Again, not, everybody's not, our cup of tea, and that's totally fine. But for people to see our content and to at least appreciate the message that we are putting out, it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding, and it's definitely not stopping anytime soon. But I'm very grateful for meeting people on this platform like yourself. I really appreciate it. Just seeing just how different professional wrestling fans are in a way. And it's great. It's great. I'm very grateful for it. And just, looking forward to just where it goes.
Well, again, thank you so much for the time, and you have an open invitation anytime you want to come on. If y'all want to get together and come do some collaborations, I'm definitely open to that too.
Of course. Yeah, 100%. We'll be in talks for sure. We'll definitely have to invite you onto our platform for an episode as well. 100%, man. Absolutely. Like I said, I appreciate the invite. Once again, shout out to my co-host. I know I'll definitely see if we'll drag him along to get him a part of this collaboration as well. But yeah, man, I really appreciate the invite, man. And this was great. I had a great time.
I'm glad. Thank you. Guys, girls, thank you for joining me and being around the campfire for another great segment. And I really hope that y'all are appreciating that we are giving you a behind the scenes views of podcasters, learning their journeys and what drives them as wrestling fans. So with that being said, again, real quickly, support your local indie wrestling. You never know who you may see on their journey on the way up, and later on in life could be a world heavyweight champion in a major promotion. Just never know. With that being said, I am Professor Bear. This has been a Bear's Thought, and we will see you around the campfire again very soon. Y'all take care.